This is Community Radio Networks. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of July today, and we have all the information that you need to know to take on the day. And we'll start with the world news. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news, read by Shabnam Madgil. Vice President Kamala Harris has the support of enough Democratic delegates to win the party's nomination for president. The vice president is now marching towards the Democratic nomination as broad swaths of the party lined up behind her bid there to take on the former President Trump. Harris, who will hold a campaign event in Milwaukee today, staked her claim as the party's standard-bearer with an electric speech yesterday in Delaware. Her first day as a candidate, she raised $81 million, calling it a historic outpouring of support. Meanwhile, Trump said that the wound on his ear from Pennsylvania assassination attempt was getting much better. His political operation is also readjusting to the new reality of a potential Trump versus Harris matchup and sharpening its attacks on the vice president. After potential rivals, lawmakers, governors, and influential labor and advocacy groups all lined up behind Vice President Kamala Harris, a wave of endorsements from state legislators yesterday pushed her over the threshold needed to secure the Democratic nomination. She's been backed by well more than the 1,976 pledged delegates needed to win the nomination on the first ballot, a moment that arrived on the first full day of her campaign. Vice President Kamala Harris kicked off her campaign yesterday and began securing support from key Democrats, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in a bid to clinch the Democratic presidential nomination. At least 2,500 delegates of almost 4,700 total plan to back her as the nominee at next month's Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Vice President Kamala Harris making her first visit to a battleground state today after locking up enough support from Democratic delegates to win her party's nomination to challenge Republican former President Trump 2 days after President Biden dropped his re-election bid. She will campaign in the critical battleground state of Wisconsin today for the first time as a U.S. presidential election candidate after enough Democratic delegates pledged to endorse her, clearing her path to the nomination. And this Wisconsin trip offers another opportunity for the 59-year-old former California prosecutor to reset the Democrats' campaign and make the case that she is best positioned to beat Trump, scheduled to deliver remarks at a political event in Milwaukee. And Vice President Kamala Harris isn't wasting any time. She has quickly consolidated support for a bid for the Democratic nomination, with seemingly all of her major potential rivals rallying around her after President Biden announced he was bowing out. And it is she who greeted campaign staff and gave a speech yesterday at the Wilmington, Delaware campaign headquarters that had, until a few days ago, housed President Biden's re-election efforts. She had tough words for Republican nominee Donald Trump and said she knows Donald Trump's type after touting her work taking on sexual predators and fraudsters as a prosecutor. Vice President Kamala Harris claimed a stunning $231 million from small and big donors in the first 24 hours since she launched her presidential campaign. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris shared a sweet moment yesterday during her first public speech since Biden dropped out of the 2024 election over the weekend and endorsed his second in command. She officially launched her presidential campaign with this public address to campaign staffers in Delaware. And before her speech, Biden called in and spoke to supporters, citing his ongoing COVID recovery as the reason for his virtual appearance. President Biden made his first public comment since announcing his withdrawal from the presidential race a day earlier during a call into the headquarters of Vice President Harris, who he endorsed following his announcement. Biden noted that he planned to be fully engaged and would be campaigning for her. Former President Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, held his first solo rally in his hometown of Middleton, Ohio. He attacked the Democratic Party over President Biden stepping down as the party's nominee for the presidential election and criticized the consolidation of support behind Vice President Kamala Harris, saying, if you want to run for president, you've got to make your case to voters. Lawyers for Donald Trump yesterday appealed a civil fraud judgment from February that found the former president and his company liable for business fraud. The 95-page appeal filed in the New York Supreme Court Appellate Division accuses State Attorney General Letitia James of an unauthorized, unprecedented power grab and says several loans cited by prosecutors should not have been considered in that case. U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle admitted to Congress that she and her agency failed when a would-be assassin wounded the former President Trump at the July 13th campaign rally in Pennsylvania. In the face of Republican claims that the Secret Service denied resources to protect Trump, she said security for the former president had grown ahead of the shooting. Republican and Democrat lawmakers called on her to resign, which she refused to do. It was the first round of congressional oversight of the attempted assassination. The Secret Service director facing off yesterday with angry House lawmakers from both parties who grilled her over the security failures that led to the recent assassination attempt against Donald Trump. She conceded the incident was a colossal failure on behalf of the Secret Service, but refused to resign from her role. Governor Abbott and Texas public safety leaders have an update on their border security efforts. To date, they say over 516,000 illegal immigrants have been apprehended and more than 45,000 criminal arrests have been made. Texas law enforcement has also seized over 505 million lethal doses of fentanyl. Governor Abbott said that through Operation Lone Star, over 199,000 migrants have been bused to so-called sanctuary cities since 2022, including Washington, D.C., New York, and Los Angeles. Hundreds of migrants from around a dozen countries left from Mexico's southern border on foot as they attempt to make it to the U.S. border. Some of the members of the group said they hope to make it to the U.S. border before elections are held in November because they fear that if Donald Trump wins, he will follow through on a promise to close the border to asylum seekers. The group left from the southern Mexico town of Ciudad Hidalgo, which is next to a river that marks Mexico's border with Guatemala. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington, D.C. as a ceasefire and hostage deal in the Israel-Hamas war remains stalled. He's expected to meet with President Biden on Thursday, though the date of the meeting remains fluid as Biden recovers from COVID-19. His visit comes as tensions between the two leaders have escalated as the U.S. has grown increasingly frustrated with the way Israel has executed the war in Gaza, including the lack of protections for civilians. Vice President Harris plans to skip Netanyahu's speech to Congress this week. He will address Congress at the invitation of House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. His speech is expected to be met by protests outside the Capitol and in Congress, as some lawmakers have vowed to boycott his appearance. Vice President Kamala Harris has mentioned that she will not preside over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's joint address to Congress tomorrow. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, said conditions for a ceasefire and hostage deal with Hamas are becoming ripe, suggesting the two sides are getting closer to agreeing to at least a temporary halt to their war in Gaza. He has signaled that a ceasefire deal that would free dozens of hostages in Gaza would be taking shape. Palestinian factions, including rivals Hamas and Fatah, have signed an agreement on ending division and strengthening Palestinian unity in Beijing, China. This announcement followed reconciliation talks hosted by China involving 14 Palestinian factions starting on Sunday, which come as Israel wages war against militant group Hamas in Gaza and as Beijing has sought to present itself as a potential peace broker in that conflict. Health Ministry in Gaza said that an Israeli operation in the main southern city of Khan Yunis has killed 70 people overnight and wounded more than 200. Israel sent tanks back into the greater Khan Yunis area after ordering evacuations of some districts it said had been used for renewed attacks by militants, and at least 70 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fire. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has said that the Israeli military has placed more than 80% of the Gaza Strip under evacuation orders or designated it as a no-go zone. The Israeli Defense Forces announced they had confirmed the deaths of 2 additional hostages in Hamas captivity in the Gaza Strip after obtaining new intelligence information. Alex Dank, 75 years old, and Yagis Bushtaff is 35, believed to have been held together by Hamas in Khan Yunis, where they died several months ago. The Israeli parliament gave preliminary approval to a bill that declares the main UN relief organization for Palestinians a terrorist organization and proposes to sever relations with the body. The vote against the UN Relief and Workers Agency for Palestinian Refugees is the latest step in an Israeli push against the agency, which Israeli leaders have accused of collaborating with Hamas in Gaza. And the agency provides education, health, and aid to millions of Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, and has long had tense relations with Israel. An Israeli negotiating team leaving for Qatar on Thursday to continue talks on a Gaza ceasefire and prisoner swap deal with Palestinian factions. And it is Israeli athletes that will receive 24-hour protection during the Paris Olympics, according to France's interior minister, after a far-left lawmaker said Israel's delegation was not welcome and called for protests against their participation. Team USA bested Germany 92-88 yesterday in their final exhibition game before heading to the Paris Olympics. LeBron James scored the final 11 points for Team USA. LeBron James will be one of the 2 American athletes to carry the U.S. flag during the opening ceremony of this summer's Olympic Games in Paris. The U.S. flag will be carried by 2 athletes, 1 man and 1 woman, as chosen by a vote of their fellow Olympic athletes, and the female flag bearer will be announced sometime later today. With just days until the start of the Paris Olympic Games, France is finalizing its massive security operation as flocks of visitors head to the city. While there are a handful of sporting venues in different parts of France and even further afield, Paris is hosting a fairly compact game, with the majority of the facilities located within a 3.1-mile radius of the Olympic Village. President Emmanuel Macron said that France was ready to host the Paris Olympics as he visited the athletes' village 4 days before the Games began. And the Australia, meanwhile, would not pick a convicted rapist for the Olympics, according to team chief Anna Meraris, after the Netherlands selected a beach volleyball player convicted of that event. Named last month in the Dutch Olympic team for Paris, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison in Britain in 2016 following the rape of a 12-year-old girl 2 years earlier when he was 19. UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer vowed to reduce the UK's long-term reliance on overseas workers as he unveiled a new skills training organisation aimed at boosting productivity and economic growth. Croatia was in a state of shock after a gunman opened fire in a nursing home, killing at least 6 people in a rare instance of gun violence in the Balkan country. 5 residents and 1 employee were dead after the gunman entered the private nursing home in the eastern town of Daruvar and went on a killing spree. NATO has confirmed the appointment of Spanish diplomat Javier Colomina as the military alliance's new envoy, tasked with coordinating actions on its southern flank, a move that has caused outrage in Italy. Italian defense minister accusing NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg of betraying Rome by not appointing an Italian to the position, created this month at the request of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Thousands of people took to the streets to protest against mass tourism on the island of Mallorca as pushback against holidaymakers in Spain continued. The demonstration called for limits on tourist numbers and saw protesters carrying signs that read, "Tourists, we love you when you don't buy our land, and your paradise is our nightmare," while marching through the city of Palma de Mallorca, located on the south coast of the island. Russian-American journalist Alsu Kurmashiva has been jailed for 6.5 years by a court in the central city of Kazan on a charge of spreading false information about the Russian army. And Russia has unveiled a comprehensive roadmap for building its newest space station and associated Earth-based infrastructure, with the first modules expected to launch within 3 years. The leadership of Russia's space agency, Roscosmos, this month described the upcoming to create the nation's newest space station, currently known as the Russian Orbital Service Station. Russia said its forces had captured 2 frontline villages in Ukraine and responded favorably to comments by Ukrainian President Zelensky on possible negotiations to end the ongoing war between the 2 countries. This year, Ukraine's largest music festival struck a different chord. Gone were the international headliners, the massive performance hall, and the hundreds of thousands of visitors. Instead, beloved local artists graced the stage this past weekend at the Atlas Festival, the first since Russia's full-scale invasion in February of 22, for a smaller but still ebullient crowd, and the stage was erected in a shopping mall parking lot, the only option, with a shelter large enough to contain the 25,000 people expected in the event of an air raid. Ukrainian foreign minister traveling to China for a 3-day trip starting today. His visit comes at the invitation of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. And the chief topic of the talks will be ending Russia's attacks on Ukraine and China's role in achieving an enduring and just peace. Iraq has hanged 10 terror convicts in the 4th such execution in 3 months, prompting a rights group to call for an end to the death penalty. Courts have handed down hundreds of death and life imprisonment sentences in recent years to Iraqis convicted of terrorism. In trials, rights groups have denounced it as hasty. At least 157 people were killed in mudslides in a remote part of Ethiopia that has been hit with a heavy rainfall. Many of them as they tried to rescue survivors of an earlier mudslide. Young children and pregnant women were among the victims of these mudslides in the Kencho-Shacha-Gozdi district of southern Ethiopia. The recent wave of deaths of dozens of people in Kenya as police cracked down on protests countrywide began with the shooting of a 30-year-old, and the killings have further eroded what little trust there was in the police to maintain order. Anti-government protesters in Kenya's capital clashed with the pro-government group today, leading to the burning of a motorcycle that belonged to people who were voicing their support for the president. The pro-government group took to the streets of Nairobi on motorcycles this morning ahead of a planned demonstration by anti-government protesters. And Colombia's President Gustavo Petro signed a bill that bans bullfights in the South American country, further reducing the short list of nations around the world where the centuries-old tradition is still legal. He signed it in front of hundreds of animal rights activists during a ceremony held in Bogota's bull ring after a supporter in a bull costume handed him a copy of the legislation. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said his country is seeking ways to ease tensions in contested areas, but the nation won't yield amid a dispute with Beijing on the South China Sea. Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, the head of Myanmar's military government, also took the position of acting president today to replace the holder of that post who was unable to perform his duties due to health problems. The announcement of the declaration naming him to replace Mint Sui came 4 days after his predecessor was publicly reported to be ailing. And it came about a week before the procedures have to be carried out to renew the state of emergency the military originally declared after it seized power from the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi in February of 21. Malaysia, meanwhile, has evacuated 123 of its citizens from Bangladesh today amid violent unrest that has killed dozens of people. Home Minister Saifuddin Nasution greeted the evacuees, including 80 students, at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport after they landed on a chartered Air Asia plane. More than 50 Malaysians opted to stay in the country due to work or studies. A controversial system for allocating government jobs has triggered violent protests in Bangladesh, with clashes between police and mainly student protesters, killing more than 100 people. And the protests have posed the most serious challenge to Bangladesh's government since Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina won a 4th consecutive term this January that the main opposition groups boycotted. Canadian law enforcement has arrested 2 people in connection with online death threats targeting Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The arrests were announced in a release yesterday from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's Federal Policing Integrated National Security Enforcement Team. And it is a 23-year-old resident of Calgary in Alberta and a 67-year-old resident of Edmonton who were arrested. Also, a Hindu temple was vandalized in Canada's Edmonton with graffiti painted on the walls. Following the incident, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad in Canada condemned it and called on the Government of Canada to act against the growing extremist ideology. This is not the first instance where a temple has been defaced with such graffiti in the recent past by Khalistani separatists, and Khalistan supporters have increased their anti-India activities after the death of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has received endorsements from 3 of the 5 Indian-American lawmakers in the House of Representatives and several prominent Indian Americans after President Biden withdrew from the presidential race. All 5 Indian-American lawmakers, including Raja Krishnamurthy, Ro Khanna, Shri Thanedar, Pramila Jayapal, and Ami Bera, have hailed Biden's decision, with 3 endorsing Kamala Harris as the Democratic presidential nominee. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal was the first to endorse her, expressing her full support. And she called and told her that 1,000% of her support is behind her. Also, Virginia's State Senator Suhas Subramaniam endorsed Kamala Harris. Neil Makija, Montgomery County Commissioner, announced plans to host fundraising events for her, and Ashwin Ramaswamy, candidate for Georgia State Senate, highlighted the significance of Harris's candidacy for Indian American and Asian American and Pacific Islander representation. And in the small village in Tamil Nadu, hopes and prayers fervently directed towards and election. No, it's not local elections or assembly elections. It is the 2024 U.S. presidential elections. This village, known as the ancestral home of U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's maternal grandparents, has been conducting special pujas for her success in the presidential bid. And the villagers believe that her connection to their community runs deep, with ancestors having prayed at the local Dharma Shastak temple. The current residents are now praying for her victory. The Indian Army personnel have been deployed in the Uttar Kannada region of Karnataka to assist in rescue operations amid landslides triggered by heavy rain. The Karnataka government is coordinating with the Army and is providing necessary equipment and logistical support to ensure the operations are carried out efficiently after passengers traveling along the National Highway 66 were trapped due to multiple landslides. Hours after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her 7th consecutive budget, Prime Minister Modi said the budget 2024 empowers the neo-middle class, the poor, the villagers, and the farmers. Addressing the nation, he also said the budget would bring unlimited opportunities for the youth. Prime Minister also said under the employment-linked incentive scheme and that the government will give the first salary to those who are newly entering the workforce. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today presented the budget for 24-25, the first budget during Prime Minister Modi-led government's 3rd term in office. People of India have reinforced their faith in the government led by Prime Minister Modi and re-elected it for the 3rd term, she said while presenting the budget in the Lok Sabha. The ruling Congress and opposition BJP in Karnataka, with the two sides accusing each other of murdering the constitution and subverting the democratic system. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu praised the union budget presented by Union Finance Minister Sitharaman during the Parliament monsoon session today and expressed gratitude for recognizing the needs of the state and commended this year's budget as progressive and confidence-boosting. Congress leaders Shashi Tharoor and P. Chidambaram accused the BJP-led NDA government of plagiarizing the Congress party's election manifesto and including the latter's promises in the budget speech. However, one announcement made by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman appeared to have pleased the two erudite leaders. After a series of terrorist attacks in the Jammu region, a big army operation has been launched called Mission All Out to hunt down or flush out anywhere between 50 and 60 Pakistani terrorists who've infiltrated Jammu. The Modi government has started what many observers are seeing as part 2 of Sarp Vinash. Sarp Vinash is a famous operation that was conducted over 20 years ago in the Jammu region to flush out a large number of terrorists who had infiltrated across the line of control and the international border. Sri Lankan players shined in the recent Women's T20I player rankings after their performance in the ongoing Women's Asia Cup 2024. Unbeaten starts to the Asia Cup from Sri Lanka and India helped a group of their player progress onto the updated rankings list. Sri Lanka's unbeaten start to the Women's Asia Cup has seen their star performers shine in the recently announced ICC Women's T20I player rankings. And the International Cricket Council Board and Annual General Meeting convened in Colombo, where discussions on next year's ICC Champions Trophy were notably absent from the agenda, contrary to the speculation circulating in sections of Pakistan media, which suggested that approvals for the budget of the Champions Trophy to be hosted by Pakistan next year would be granted during the meeting. The Champions Trophy, slated to return to Pakistan in February and March of next year under the auspices of the Pakistan Cricket Board, faces uncertainties amid unconfirmed participation from India. Tensions between the two countries have cast a shadow over India's involvement in the tournament. Pakistan were previously awarded the 2009 Champions Trophy, but security concerns prompted the ICC to relocate the event to South Africa. Reports now suggest that Afghanistan may also reconsider its participation, echoing India's stance. Despite the reopening of the Chaman border, crossing Pakistan traders and workers are reportedly being denied entry to Afghanistan on the basis of their national identity documents. Pakistan reopened its border crossing with Afghanistan at Chaman over the weekend, following successful negotiations with the leaders of a sit-in protest in the border town, and agreed to allow individuals from both countries to cross the border using their respective national identity cards. However, Afghan border officials at the Friendship Gate have reportedly denied entry to Chaman locals trying to use Pakistan ID cards as travel documents. The issue of good Taliban, a euphemism for militants who surrendered to security forces, was one of the main items on the table when Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Chief Minister Ali Amin Gandapur met with representatives of the 40-strong Bannu Aman Jirga. A meeting to iron out the issues resulting from the violence during a peace rally in the district ended on a happy note late last night, with sources saying both sides had basically agreed on all points. And the presence of good Taliban groups has become a contentious topic, and observers believe this issue is the thorniest of all and likely to pose a challenge for the government, both in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the center. Following in the footsteps of its coalition partner, PMLN, the PPP has filed a review petition challenging the Supreme Court's verdict on the reserved seats case. In a landmark ruling on the 12th of this month, the top court declared Imran Khan's PTI eligible for seats reserved for women and minorities, dealing a major setback to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's ruling alliance. The verdict means the PTI is poised to become the single largest party in the National Assembly. An important cabinet meeting, which was expected to consider the issue of banning the opposition PTI today, was postponed due to the Prime Minister's hectic schedule. And we also do have the Bilawal Bhutto Zardari-led Pakistan People's Party challenging the Supreme Court verdict allocating reserved seats to jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party a week after its ruling coalition partner, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, submitted a review petition. Although several leaders from the ruling coalition were apprehensive of the Supreme Court's judgment, it was Punjab Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz, the daughter of PMLN party Supremo Nawaz Sharif, who launched a salvo against the Supreme Court verdict, saying, "I would like to ask the Supreme Court judges to let the country function." She expressed her surprise and questioned the legitimacy of reinstating individuals she described as criminals of the nation. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan has criticized the Chief Justice of Pakistan for allegedly hurrying to fix the review of a judgment regarding reserved seats, stressing that the PTI's petition against human rights violations had been pending for months and yet to be taken up. He, talking to journalists at the Adiala jail, he expressed concerns that PTI workers are being tried in military courts in fear that he might also face a court-martial in connection with the May 9th cases. The legal team of the incarcerated PTI founding chairman Imran Khan withdrew his petitions against the denial of pre-arrest bail in those riots cases related to the burning of Jinnah House, Askari Tower, and Shadman police station. In a harrowing turn of events, renowned screenwriter Khalilur Rahman Qamar was allegedly kidnapped, tortured, and looted in Lahore earlier this week. The incident has sent ripples through the entertainment industry and beyond, and reported to have occurred on the 15th of July. He held a press conference to speak about the incident. And according to the FIR registered at the Sundar police station in Lahore, he received a phone call from an unknown number close to midnight, and the caller, who identified herself as Amna Uruj, claimed to be a fan of his and expressed a desire to collaborate with him on a TV drama. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you, but I do have your financial news coming up in a separate segment in just a minute. In today's financial news on this lovely Tuesday morning, the 23rd of July, U.S. stock futures have wobbled as investors weighed early reports on a marquee earnings day with big tech results later in focus as potential fuel to sustain this year's rally. Futures on the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 floated around the flat line, coming off sharp closing gains for the gauges, and Dow Jones Industrial Average futures were also little change but in the green. Investors are assessing earnings from General Motors, Coca-Cola, out the gate early this morning, and we have some of them that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And the wait is on for Alphabet and Tesla results due after the bell, with the market watching for signs of continuing growth from the first pair of the Magnificent Seven behemoths. Benchmark stock market indices closing lower amid a volatile trading session after the government increased tax. And we do also have sector-wise FMCG and other other companies. U.S. unions have begun to rally around Vice President Kamala Harris as Democrats and Republicans gear up for a fight over the labor vote in November. The unions who have rallied to Harris so far are keen to see a continuation of the Biden administration's strong record of union support. He has been touted as the most pro-union president ever and become the first sitting president to walk a picket line during the United Auto Workers strike last year. She too has been a vocal union supporter and is already racking up endorsements. The 1.9 million member Service Employees International Union was among the first to endorse her. She has close ties to the union and announced new safe staffing standards for nursing home workers with the union earlier this year. The Vice President also has secured the backing of other unions, including Communications Workers of America, International Brotherhood of Electrical and American Federation of Teachers, the United Food and Commercial Workers, the United Farm Workers, the National Union of Healthcare Workers, and the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. U.S. customers who bought a new General Motors vehicle last quarter paid an average of just under $49,900, a price that helped push the company's net income 15% above a year ago. The GM chief financial officer, Paul Jacobson, said he doesn't see his company cutting prices very much, despite industry analysts' predictions of growing U.S. new vehicle inventories and bigger discounts. The Detroit automaker today said it made $2.92 billion from April through June, with revenue of $47.97 billion that beat analyst expectations. GM once again posting strong second quarter results and boosted its guidance for a second time this year as customers continue buying the Detroit-based automaker's gas-powered vehicles, trucks, and even EVs. This year has been a testament to Elon Musk's ability to lead Tesla Inc.'s shares into and out of trouble. It's been a volatile time, even by Tesla standards, with the chief executive officer battling for more control of the company, turning back from a $25,000 electric vehicle and ordering mass layoffs. These erratic episodes helped send the stock on a 43% plunge as of the 23rd of April, the day Tesla last reported earnings. The shares have been on a tear since then, despite an uninspiring set of results and the downward trend in expectation for the second quarter results, Tesla reporting today. When they deliver on those Optimus robots we keep hearing about, it's going to be a little while longer than first anticipated, according to CEO Elon Musk. GE Aerospace raised its annual profit forecast today on strong demand for its aftermarket services, including jet engine parts, as a shortage of new planes prompted airlines to keep older ones in the air. Shares of the company rose 2.5% in pre-market trading. Spotify Technology reported fiscal second quarter earnings today that beat expectations as revenue came in line with estimates. The audio giant once again posted a profit on an adjusted basis and a nod to its recent efficiency strategy, although monthly active user metrics disappointed. Last month, Spotify announced it would hike the price of its premium U.S. subscription plans, with the increases set to take effect this month. Spotify previously raised prices last summer. Comcast beat estimates for quarterly profit today as strong growth in its Peacock streaming service and a smaller than expected loss in broadband customers helped overcome weakness in its studio and theme parks business. Shares of the company rose 2.5% in pre-market trading today after Comcast reported that it lost 120,000 broadband customers compared with estimates for a loss of 143,000. Coca-Cola raised its annual organic sales and profit forecast today, signaling consumers are willing to spend more for the beverage giant's higher-priced sodas, energy drinks, and juices, mainly in international markets. The company's shares rose nearly 1% in pre-market trading today, as the company also posted a surprise increase in quarterly revenue. Coca-Cola has been foraying into newer regions in Asia and Europe to keep its revenue growth intact and launching reformulated versions of its drinks, such as Coke Spiced and Georgia Coffee, in markets that are quickly turning price sensitive. Cybersecurity startup Wiz Inc. has turned down a takeover bid of as much as $23 billion from Alphabet Inc.'s Google, sticking instead with a plan for an IPO. And this rejection will come as a blow to Google, which is trying to catch up with Microsoft Corporation and Amazon.com Inc. in an intensely competitive cloud services market. Google, which bought cybersecurity firm Mandiant for $5.4 billion just 2 years ago in its second largest acquisition, could have used Wiz to round off its security offerings. The New York-based startup connects to cloud storage providers such as Amazon Web Series and Microsoft Azure and scans data stored there for security risks. U.S. defense company Lockheed Martin raised its annual sales target for the first time this year, following the unexpected resumption of deliveries of its F-35 aircrafts after Pentagon began accepting the jets last week. The Ritz-Carlton is set to launch its third luxury super yacht named Luminara. The ship will debut next year, sits at 794 feet, and is considered the largest and most impressive part of its fleet. The ship can accommodate up to 452 guests and includes 226 suites with private ocean view terraces. Ritz-Carlton says Luminara ensures an intimate journey with one of the highest staff and space ratios in at sea, and offers world-class dining with 5 restaurants, 6 bars, and a wine vault, a signature Ritz-Carlton spa, and a marina that gives guests direct access to the ocean. With its new super yacht, Ritz-Carlton is expanding into the Asia-Pacific region, exploring 28 ports across 10 countries, including Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, Thailand, and beyond. Delta cancelled or delayed more than 1,100 flights yesterday as it struggles to recover from a massive technology outage that first froze air travel nationwide last Friday. And even today, they have had hundreds of cancellations. With the cost of virtually everything rising these days, more teenagers are finding themselves searching for jobs, not just for extra pocket money, but to help their families make ends meet. The current labor force participation rate for people ages 16 to 19 is 37.4%. The cost of insuring your home may not go down anytime soon, as insurance companies are jacking up their premiums on homeowners to make up for losses from extreme weather. The analysis from S&P Global found that rates have soared by 32.5% in Arkansas, 60% in Texas, and 48% in Oklahoma from 2018 to 23. It's that time to prepare for the new school year 23-24 across Dallas-Fort Worth. And if you wonder how much more time you have to prepare for that first day of class, let us get you some dates. Some small school districts will be opening on the 5th and 6th, but Allen, Anna, Denton, and Sanger on the 7th of August. On the 8th of August, Ennis, Little Elm, McKinney, and Wiley. 12th of August, Carrollton Farmers Branch, Cedar Hill, Dallas, DeSoto, Frisco, Garland, HEB, Irving, Rockwall. And on the 13th of August, Duncanville, Fort Worth, Grand Prairie, Louisville, Plano, Prosper, and Richardson. And on the 14th of August, Arlington, Salina, Coppell, Decatur, Forney, Grapevine, Colleyville, Harlan Park, Keller, Mansfield, and Mesquite. The 49th edition of the Toronto International Film Festival announced its full lineup of galas and special presentations in what is a complete embarrassment of riches as the event blasts off after last year's actors' strike, with 29 titles having rights for sale. Among those movies making their world premiere is the Angelina Jolie-directed war drama Without Blood, starring Salma Hayek and Damian Bichir, based on the Alessandro Baricco novel. And Ukraine and its private creditors have struck a deal to push back debt repayments, giving the war-torn country crucial breathing space as it struggles with the economic devastation of Russia's invasion. Under this deal, some of the world's top investment funds, including BlackRock, Amundi, and Amia Capital, will effectively write off a large part of $23.4 billion in claims by exchanging their current bonds for new ones, which runs for as much as 12 years. The undisclosed buyer has finally stepped up to the helm of the Alpha Nero super yacht, ending a 2-year-long saga. That buyer agreed last week to pay $40 million, a huge discount to the $67.6 million that former Google CEO Eric Schmidt bid last year, a deal he eventually abandoned. The Antigua and Barbuda government sold the super yacht, which houses an infinity pool that converts to a helipad or a dance floor. The massively discounted price can be attributed to authorities needing to get the boat sold. And this 267-foot vessel was seized by Antigua and Barbuda authorities after it was linked to Russian oligarch Andrei Guriev, who was accused by the U.S. Treasury Department of having close ties to Russian President Putin. He's the founder of Fosagro, Europe's largest producer of phosphate fertilizers. Adidas has issued a second apology, this time to Bella Hadid and other partners, after the model threatened legal action over an ad campaign inspired by the 1972 Munich Olympics, which was linked to the Munich massacre. In a statement, Adidas representatives said connections continue to be made to the terrible tragedy that occurred at the Munich Olympics due to our recent campaign, and these connections are not meant, and we apologize for any upset or distress caused to communities around the world. Boeing and Korean Air announced that the carrier would be buying as many as 50 of the plane maker's wide-body jetliners. Korean Air will purchase 20 777Xs and 20 787-10 Dreamliners, with an option to add another 10 to the largest Dreamliner model. The two companies have announced it at the Farnborough Air Show outside of London. Samsung Electronics and representatives of its biggest workers' union in South Korea, which has been on a strike, met today, but the talks ended without any results. Prime Minister Modi's newly formed government presented an annual budget to Parliament that raises spending to generate more jobs and spur economic growth, while aiming to appease coalition partners it needs to stay in power. In her budget speech today, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said the government is focused on driving domestic growth through jobs, training, and small businesses. India's inflation rate is stable and moving towards the government's 4% target, while the economy grew at a sizzling 8.2% rate in the last fiscal year. And benchmark stock market indices closed lower amid a volatile trading session today after the government increased tax on equity trading in budget 2024. The S&P BSE Sensex lost 73.04 points to close as 80,000, while the NSE Nifty 50 was down 30.20 points to end at 24,000. India made significant changes to taxes on gains from equity investments and stock derivatives for the first time in decades, seeking to curb the surge in speculative trading in the nation's $5 trillion market. The surge in India's equity derivatives volumes to the highest in the world has spurred anxiety that this frenzy may hinder efforts to channel household savings for productive uses. Also, we do have the stock market seeing this decline today after the announcement of the union budget. Both Sensex and Nifty experienced significant losses. She raised taxes on capital gains, especially the long-term capital gains tax on equities, which was increased to 12.5% from the previous 10%. The finance minister also proposed to increase the rate of securities transactions tax on futures and options. Realty stocks dipped up to 5% after the finance minister, in a union budget speech, announced the removal of indexation benefits on the sale of property. We do have this budget like an empty vessel given to Karnataka by Nirmala Sitharaman. Only Andhra Pradesh and Bihar have been given funds. Nothing has been given to other states because Prime Minister Modi needs to have the confidence of those states to remain as a Prime Minister. New income tax slabs announced new tax regimes, and the industry is hailing the waiving of import duties on critical minerals, that critical mineral mission to aid overseas assets acquisition. NRIs are going to pay a higher TDS on capital gains on assets. The capital gains exemption limit hiked to 1.25 lakh rupees. The Delhi High Court gave 24 hours to X and Google for taking down social media posts alleging that Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla's daughter and Indian Railway Personnel Service officer Anjali Birla cleared the UPSC exam in her first attempt due to her father's influence. The social media posts complained of do not appear to be made after due verification. Meanwhile, the government in Pakistan has hired an American consultancy firm, Kearney, to help attract foreign investment in the country. Finance Minister Aurangzeb's briefed officials of a global rating agency about Pakistan's economy and the successful agreement with the International Monetary Fund to stabilize macroeconomic indicators. The financial market is abuzz with speculation as the state bank prepares to announce its monetary policy by the end of this month, with researchers, analysts and bankers widely anticipating a rate cut, though opinions vary on the extent of this reduction. Trade and industry people in Karachi have asked the government to seriously look into the matter of high electricity tariffs for all categories of consumers, particularly export and general industries, and rationalize the same to bring down the cost of production. The country's power generation fell by 2% year-on-year during financial year 24, owing to a slowdown in overall economic activity and lower demand amid rising power tariffs. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news. I do have your final segment of the program coming up soon. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks.
She sent you a winky face.
This is the final segment of our program today on this Tuesday morning. It is the 23rd of July, and I have huge thanks going out to Discount Power for their support of Community Radio Networks. Also, thanks going out to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinzer Law, Michaelachi, Ruchi Palace by Michaelachi, Sri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Mystic Mandala, and Flash Brush Productions, thanking all of you for your support of community radio networks. And our program today on this 23rd of July, let's make your social calendar. There is going to be a match today in Dallas at the Grand Prairie Stadium, the cricket match that is going on. That is the 2024 Texas Super Kings playing also. So we have that schedule out, and there will be one tomorrow, Wednesday, as well as Thursday, the eliminator and the qualifier, and then the challenger on the 26th and the final on the 28th. 4 more matches after today, all of them at the Grand Prairie Stadium in Grand Prairie. And the Wish Win Spellathon has been announced. The preliminaries will be on the 26th and 27th for the Junior Spellathon, and for the Senior Spellathon on the 28th and 29th. Do check out more details at wishwin.org. Shehnaz Gill will be in town this week, and that is going to be this weekend at the Ruchi Palace by Michaelachi, and that is Shehnaz Gill. So all your fans need to be there for that. We have also this is happening on Saturday, and also another event happening on Saturday is the Al Noor International's 5th Cruise Mushaira on the romantic waves of Frisco Lake, with a dinner at the Hidden Cove Park and Marina at Hackberry Creek in Frisco. We have an event that is happening this Sunday, hosted by Nasir Khan, with Natasha Beg, Wahaj Ali, Yumna Zaidi, and Rafe Israr. And this will be at the Plano Civic Center. The Indian Cultural Heritage Foundation proudly presents a spectacular dance and musical called Krishna, Fire to Frost, by a dynamic dancing duo Nirupama and Rajendra and a troupe of 21 artists. This is going to be happening the following weekend, not this weekend, on the 3rd of August at 5 o'clock in the Moody Performance Hall. Tickets are available at Ticket DFW, and you don't want to miss this amazing production on the pulsating personality of Draupadi from the greatest epic, the Mahabharata. We have Krishna, Fire to Frost on the 3rd of August at 5 o'clock in the Moody Performance Hall. Life Transformation with Swami Mukundananda, daily discourses on power of thoughts through Patanjali Yoga Sutras, starting on the 3rd of August and going all the way till the 9th of August, from Saturday the 3rd, not this Saturday, again it's next weekend, from the 3rd to the 9th at the Radha Krishna Temple in Allen, every day from 6 to 9. The 2024 North Texas Job Fair is going to be hosted by Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne in partnership with the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be on the 8th of August at the Texas Rangers Stadium. myntxjobs.com is the website to get more information. And the Chamber is very pleased to promote this job fair hosted by Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne on the 8th of August at the Texas Rangers Stadium. Madhuri Dixit will be in town on the 9th of August, and you can get your tickets at 360shows.com. Yadein, a program reminiscing the songs of Kishore Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar, and Muhammad Rafi, on Saturday, the 10th of August at 8 o'clock at the Grand Center in Plano. The Brahma Kumaris inviting you with your family and friends to the Thai Rakhi Love and Protection event, beginning with an explanation of the significance of Raksha Bandhan, followed by the tying of a bracelet, blessing card, and sweets in a peaceful and powerful atmosphere of meditation. On the Saturday, the 17th of August, from 6 to 8 at the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center on Josie Lane in Farmers Branch. A holistic festival. It's a 2-day festival of life and wellness, 17th and 18th, Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 5 at the Cotton Mill, McKinney, brought to you by Mystic Mandala. And if you'd like to be a part of it, please call Vijay at 972-750-1419. Pakistan Society of North Texas and 24/7 Entertainment are presenting a celebration of Pakistan's Independence Day and inviting you all to Qaid Mela with a live performance by Farhan Sayyed and Sabah Kamar. It is music, food, clothing, mehndi, kids activities, and plenty more happening on Sunday, the 18th of August at the Frisco Flyers Event Center. At the Dallas Museum of Art, coinciding with the 70th anniversary of Frida Kahlo's death, a new exhibition is opening called Frida, Beyond the Myth, composed of over 60 works across media, paintings, drawings, prints, and photographs. And the exhibition will explore the life of one of 20th century's most well-documented artists, one who continues to elude our understanding of her as an individual. Frida, Beyond the Myth, opening on the 18th of August, and it'll continue until November at the Dallas Museum of Art in downtown Dallas. The U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce would like for you to mark the 22nd of August for their Wellness and Workplace Conference, and it is going to be at the McKesson corporate headquarters from 9:30 to 2. 22nd of August. And this is in Irving, featuring keynote speaker Nimesh Javeri, the Executive Vice President and Chief Impact Officer at McKesson. The India Association of North Texas presenting the 47th Anand Bazaar, celebrating 77 years of India's independence on Saturday, the 31st of August at the Rough Riders Stadium. We do have a music concert by Kanika Kapoor, which will be free for all of you. Lots of kids' activities, food booths, performances, fireworks, and lots more happening at the Rough Riders Stadium on Saturday, the 31st of August. Join the Brahma Kumaris in welcoming Sister Shivani, a globally renowned spiritual teacher and motivational speaker, as she guides us with ancient wisdom to bring hope and clarity in times of confusion and chaos. Sunday, the 8th of September from 2 to 4 at the Credit Union of Texas Event Center in Allen. Also, the second season 2 of the Broadway-style Mughal-e-Azam is coming back to Dallas on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of September at the Dallas Music Hall. Flash Brush Productions brings to you a bridal expo. It's a wedding expo on the 14th of September from 10 to 7 at the Frisco Hall. For those of you who'd like to be a part of it, sponsor it, or get a booth, please call Priya at 972-963-0954. 19th September will be Texas Giving Day this year, and the Dallas Festival of Lights, the Grand Diwali Mela, on the 13th of October at the South Fork Ranch, brought to you by Mystic Mandala. For booths and more information, please call Vijay at 972-750-1419. Before I end my show, some quick stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 23rd of July. In Egypt, the Society of Free Officers seizes control of the government in a military coup staged by Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser's Free Officers. King Farouk, whose rule had been criticized for its corruption and failures in the First Arab-Israeli War, was forced to abdicate and relinquish power to General Muhammad Naqib, the figurehead leader of this coup. This happened on today's date in 1952, when the military seized power in Egypt. And in 1967, the Detroit riots began on today's date, the 23rd of July, among the bloodiest in American history. The strife occurred during a period of Detroit's history when the once affluent city was struggling economically and race relations nationwide were at an all-time low. The Detroit Police Department's Vice Squad often raided illegal drinking establishments in the city's poorer neighborhoods. And that morning, they moved against a club that was hosting a party for returning Vietnam War veterans. The early morning police activity drew a crowd of onlookers, and the situation rapidly deteriorated. And soon, thousands of people had spilled out onto the street from nearby buildings, throwing rocks and bottles at the police, who quickly fled the scene. Looting began on 12th Street, where the club was located, and shops and businesses were ransacked. The Detroit riots of 1967 began on the 23rd of July and continued for a week. And the U.S. Army and National Guard were called in to quell the worst of the violence. By the time the bloodshed, burning, and looting ended after 5 days, some 43 people were dead and many more seriously injured, and nearly 1,400 buildings had been burned or ransacked. On the 23rd of July, 1984, 21-year-old Vanessa Williams gives up her Miss America title, the first resignation in the pageant's history, after Penthouse magazine announces plans to publish nude photos of the beauty queen in its September issue. She originally made history in 1983, a year before, when she became the first black woman to win the Miss America crown. Miss New Jersey, Suzette Charles, the first runner-up and also African-American, assumed William's tiara for the 2 months that remained of her reign. And that is Miss America resigning over nude photos on the 23rd of July in 1984. In 1988, on today's date, the 23rd of July, the band called Guns N' Roses made its big popular breakthrough. When their first hit single, Sweet Child of Mine, entered the Billboard Top 40. In the 1980s, Los Angeles was a mecca for so-called glam rock bands and the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle with which they came to be associated. And Guns N' Roses made their breakthrough with this song on the Billboard Top 40. It's called Sweet Child of Mine. It went on to become not just a #1 hit on this day in 1988, but also a true rock classic, voted into greatest lists by Rolling Stone, Blender, and the RIAA, BBC, and the like. Sweet Child of Mine made stars out of Guns N' Roses, and it made so-called power ballads like Poison's Every Rose Has Its Thorn seem weak by comparison. You're listening to Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine. And on today's date in 1996, at the Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, the U.S. women's gymnastics team wins its first ever team gold. Happened on today's date in the year 1996. The team was nicknamed the Mag 7 or Magnificent 7, made up of 7 immensely talented teenaged girls, and entered the Summer Olympics with the expectation of an entire country heaped on their young shoulders. They were considered America's best shot ever at an Olympic team gold, something no American women's gymnastics team had ever won. The American women's best finish to that point had been a silver at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, which were boycotted by the favored Soviet Union, winner of 8 consecutive team golds between 1952 and 1980. And to win the gold that year in 1996, the U.S. women faced a battle with perennial contender Russia and Romania, the 2-time defending world champions. Still, U.S. fans believed the odds were good, and the team had deep reserves of talent and each of its members capable of winning events. And when the team competition began, veteran U.S. star Shannon Miller did not disappoint, delivering an impressive performance to place second overall to the Ukrainian world champion Lilia. And the final event of the team competition for the U.S. was the vault. 14-year-old Dominique Moceanu, the first American to compete, had a chance to clinch the gold for her team with a solid performance, but was unable to stick the landing on her first attempt. As the pro-American crowd gathered in Atlanta held their breath, she took off for a second vault and again slipped and fell on the landing, and this left it up to Strug, America's second and final vaulter, to seal that win. On her first attempt, she also fell on the landing and heard an alarming pop in her ankle. The team and coach, unaware that the team had won whether Strug vaulted again or not, so she bravely readied herself to vault on her badly sprained ankle. After executing a perfect 1.5 twisting, she landed solidly on 2 feet and spun and hopped on 1 foot towards the judges' table before collapsing in pain. When her 9.712 was announced, she celebrated in the arms of her coach, who would later have to carry this 4'9" spark plug Strug to the medal stand. And the U.S. women take home the gymnastics gold on today's date in 1996. And then the music festival called Woodstock 99 opened on today's date, the 23rd of July, 1999. The festival, timed to the 30th anniversary of the original Woodstock, attempts to bring the spirit of peace, music, and love to a new generation. Instead, it devolves into 3 days of scorching heat, raw sewage, misogyny, and greed in upstate New York. Woodstock 99. It was organized by John Scher and Michael Lang, one of the co-founders of the original Woodstock. Unlike the 1969 festival, organizers hoped to make money on this anniversary celebration. The venue was Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York, which a Rolling Stone reporter described as the least rock and roll venue imaginable, full of concrete and airplane hangars and barbed wire. Poor planning and the desire to turn a profit led to a miserable experience on the scorching tarmac, where temperatures soared over 100 degrees. Portable toilets overflowed with raw sewage, contaminating the available running water, and water bottles costing $4 apiece. Some 250,000 people flocked to hear the bands, including Korn, Kid Rock, Insane Clown Posse, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. 3 people died and hundreds were treated for heat stroke and dehydration. Red Hot Chili Peppers played the final set of the weekend, which devolved into chaos. They performed a cover of Jimi Hendrix's Fire in tribute to the Woodstock great, as festival goers set fires, flipped cars, and looted tents and trailers throughout the venue. Festival organizers had made the strange choice to hand out thousands of lit candles during the set, which they hoped to use for a vigil for the victims of the Columbine shooting, and the crowd, though, had other plans. The festival's creators and promoters blamed the debacle on the rowdy young attendees, called them irresponsible, aggressive, and anarchic. Those who attended, however, said they were made to feel like animals penned into the Air Force Base in unsafe and unsanitary conditions. And the Red Hot Chili Peppers said that the view from the onstage reminded them of the movie Apocalypse Now. The San Francisco Chronicle simply called the festival "The Day the Music Died." Woodstock 99, that began on today's date for 3 days in 1999, started on today's date, the 23rd of July. And on today's date right now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is my show for today. And I do hope you found it informative. And for those of you who'd like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.